A business owner in southwestern Ontario, and I want to do a little bit of commentary about this guy and what he's talking about in this video.
We are now approaching a very crucial time in the mortgage renewal game. We are about to hit peak renewal pain every month.
Hey guys, Matthew here. Now, why am I interested in stuff like this? One, I'm a business owner. And two, my business that is involved in people that own houses, own multi-residential. I deal with builders, I deal with large property management companies and real estate investment trusts. So I see this firsthand. Now check this out. This guy is saying from 10 to 40% of the entire bank's mortgages are going to renew in the next 1 year.
TD Bank has 9% of their mortgage book coming up for renewal by the end of August 2024. BNS 13%, CIBC 16%, BMO 10%, and Royal Bank 18%. Okay, TD has 26% of their book maturing into these rates. Bank of Nova Scotia 31%, CIBC 39%, BMO 23%, and Royal Bank over 40 at 41%. Now, not less than 50%. At the end of this year, there will only be about 47% of Canadians that have renewed into a higher rate environment. So there's still a majority of Canadians that haven't seen the pain of higher interest rates. And
this should bother you a little bit, or at least you should start thinking right now. Now check this one out. This is really going to make you flip your giblet. I have heard that it goes from 20 to 33% of all the mortgages on their books.
At CIBC, the proportion of mortgages with amortization periods longer than 30 years is 30%. At RBC, it's 25%. At BMO, it's more than 32%, according to their latest regulatory. In Canada, when a homeowner first takes out their mortgage, the amortization is typically around 25 years, but can be longer if you put less than 20% down. And basically, yes, it can be longer. It can go up to 30 years. And essentially what's happening right now is, like I said, they're letting people push out their amortization, negative amortization, and they're not even paying the interest portion of their loan, let alone the principal.
Okay, on their books was a fixed rate variable.
And it's a specific type of variable rate mortgage that boomed during 2021. It's the fixed payment variable rate mortgage. And that product is just a total disaster.
Which is very, very, very similar to the adjustable rate ARM that was offered in the States from 2003 to 2007 that blew up their market.
okay, these are folks coming out of renewals where they're paying 2.79% up to maybe 3.49%. And they're now going to see fixed rates north of 6% in most cases, some pushing 7%, okay? And for those that are in the variable game, in the last number of years, they saw their variables at 1.5%. You know, prime minus 95, prime minus 1 was 145 for the longest time.
They say that something between, 70 to 80%, of all mortgages over the last 3 years, we're done with a fixed rate variable. Okay, you know what a fixed rate variable? That's where you've got a variable interest rate and it's a static payment, but what actually changes in the variable is the differential of what you pay from principal to interest. That ratio changes as the interest rate goes up. Well, the interest rate kept going up, that your minimum payment that you're paying does not cover even all the interest. So what the banks have done is they did a secret loan modification. They took it and they stretched out the amortization. Some of them had to stretch it out so far as past 100 years. This guy actually calls it the Buzz Lightning year mortgage, where it just goes to infinity and beyond. Well, it's not going to keep going into infinity beyond. They might stretch it out to infinity for now, but they're going to rein it back. So if 70, 80% of these mortgages over the last 3 years, people had to take it because they put the stress test in. Remember that? They put the stress test in?
Okay, so what is a stress test? Well, back in 2016, the Canadian government put into place what's called a stress test factor, which allowed you to qualify for a mortgage, but based not on the rate that you're getting, but on a higher rate that would be used in the calculation of your debt ratios. This was put as a safeguard in case rates were to go up, to make sure that within the guidelines you still qualify for that particular mortgage. Up to this particular point, it really hasn't been a factor. However, Now when rates are now actually starting to creep up, people, especially those that are on a variable rate, are seeing rate increases. And one of the things, or the stresses that seems to be coming into play, is that many of us are used to paying lower payments, okay? Because even though we might qualify at a higher rate, okay, and right now, as of today, July the 6th, I think it is right now, the stress test is 5.25%, okay? So basically, we were qualifying at 5.25% previous, but we were just paying much lower, especially for on a variable. Basically, what happens now, if I come into a home, and the rule is, a stress test is your 5.25% or the rate that you're going to be given plus 2%, whichever is greater. Okay, so let's say, for example, I am actually going to want a 5-year fixed mortgage. And so let's say the 5-year fixed right now is about 5.09%, let's say, for example, for a high ratio 5-year fixed mortgage. I actually have to qualify now at 7.09%. So what does this do for me in terms of how I would qualify? So a couple of things is, so if I walk into the bank and say, hey, this is how much I qualify, they'll get you pre-approved at a 5-year fixed rate. It might be a little bit different than the amount that I would get if I was actually trying to qualify at a variable rate, just because of where interest rates are going right now. So for example, let's take a couple that makes $150,000 a year, and let's assume they don't have any other debt. Just assume this is the amount, and they're going to be putting less than 20% down. So these are insured mortgages. The mortgages with the maximum amortization, or the maximum amount of time that you can take to pay that mortgage, is 25 years. So let's say, for example, this particular couple, $150,000 combined income, they qualify for a mortgage at the stress test at 5.25% of about $680,000. But if they chose to go to a 5-year fixed term, okay, we have to qualify them at 2 points above whatever that rate is. So now we're qualifying at 7.09%. And again, that's not the rate that they're going to be getting. It is going to be the rate we need to qualify them at. That changes their approval for a mortgage amount from $680,000 to $590,000. Okay, so that's significant. That's like $90,000 difference between what they're going to be qualifying under those two amounts.
And then the variable rates were so low, it drove everybody into the variable rates because the variable rate was lower. You couldn't qualify for a 5-year fix. You could buy more house doing it this way. Okay, so this is the actual real life scenario. People sold their house, okay, where they only owed like 150 grand on it, and they're like, oh, well, we have like 150,000 now in down payment. We would never be able to save that up. So now we can put 10% down, or put that down and buy like a $400,000 or $500,000 house and get the house that we've always wanted. Now this is our chance. So this is what they did. They mortgaged $425 at 1.5% on this fixed rate variable product. That gave them a payment of $1,699. Okay, now to be able to afford this payment, okay, you had to have about $70,000 income with no debt. So if you had more debt, you just need more income, right? Okay, that's important to remember, about $70,000. We'll pretend that all these people have no debt, but we all know that when you start making over $100,000, you have 2 brand new cars in the driveway, you got car payments, they're selling this really cool trailer, and I wanted to always have a trailer out in the creek so in the Pickle Lake, and then we're gonna do this and that, and so people went and did that. Okay, so they financed more. But they had lots of money because, remember, they just sold their house and they put $150,000 in the bank. They took $75,000 of that and they went and bought their dream house. They gave them a really low payment of this. Okay? Well, the interest rates all went up on their differential but their payment was still this. In actual reality, the payment was actually this, $3,003 after it went up to like 7% on their variable rate. You guys follow me here? Which means that they were in a deficit each month of $1,304 a month. Now let's say they had 24 months left of their mortgage. Well, times that by 24. They added another $31,000 to their $425. What are you saying, Matt? What are you saying? Are you saying that people actually, they went backwards? Yes, they went backwards. I'm watching all these videos and I'm thinking to myself, people are not understanding what's going to happen, okay? So this is what happens in this situation. You get your $425 original mortgage, you're going to add $31K to it, so now you have a balance of $456 and change, right? So then you go for your renewal. Now your renewal, let's say you go for your renewal now. We're going to do a 5-year fix because we got tired of this. Right now, the variable rates are higher. The variable rate interest rates are higher than if you take a fixed. So let's say you took a fixed, and it's 6.5%. and you put it over 25 years. Let's say they actually do this. Now, OSFI, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, is saying we might not let them do 25 years. Some people are saying, oh, we're going to let them go to 40. No, they're not going to let them go to 40. Okay, maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe they'll say, okay, we are screwed, so you're stuck in this house for the next 50 years. But they're saying that they're going to have to. If they took a 5-year or a 3-year and did this, they're saying that the amortization has to be put in line. So let's say they took a 3-year mortgage. It was a 25-year am. Now they're under a 22-year mortgage. Okay, but let's say it's 25. Okay, now their payment is $3,078 a month. That means you got to make $112,000 a year to even qualify for this payment. You're house poor. You're broke.
It's desperate Canadians breaking down about their inability to make ends meet, even with a decent job.
I want to know how the hell people in Canada are even living. Like, I just got a good job. I started in September, but even with that job, it pays less than 40 grand a year. And it's a job that requires, like, education, and even on that job, like, I still can't do shit. I can't buy anything. Like, I'm just feeling so much despair, and I know I'm normally like really, really positive, but I'm just like, how is everyone else, and are you okay? Because the answer is probably no.
The desperation is building up in Canada. As of last count, that video had 5.4 million views on TikTok, and there are dozens more like it. And it's not just anecdotes on social media. The data bears it out. A survey from insolvency trustee firm MNP Limited found that in July of this year, 52% of Canadians were within $200 of financial insolvency. That's up from 46% just 3 months earlier. Trouble is spreading quickly. The survey also revealed what's driving people's anxieties: rising household bills and food prices, not to mention rising debt costs, with interest rates having soared in the past year and a half. And in what might be the most shocking aspect of the survey, it turned out that 35% of Canadian households don't make enough to cover their current bills. That's the highest ever recorded on the survey, and up from 30% just 3 months earlier.
You can't afford it. This is like, we're going from $1,600 a month to $3,100 a month. Can you imagine if the landlord and tenant laws in the country would allow a landlord, now it's mostly restricted on all housing, except with the exception of new builds in some municipalities, but most is under rent control for good reason. So let's say they let the landlords decide, you know what? Everybody's rent's going up $1,500. Everybody. What do you think would happen? There'd be a list of evictions to do. They would never be able to get to everybody. Might as well just live there for free as long as you can. What's going to happen with all these guys? I'll tell you what's going to happen with all of them. They're going to put every toy in every cottage they have up for sale to try to save their house.
What's the cottage market like now, actually? Any idea about that, TK?
On my Facebook feed, it was always listed, sold, listed, sold, listed,
6
sold.
million% over asking.
Now the most common post I'm seeing is new price.
Yeah. Please help me.
Do you want to be selling a cottage property right now? Maybe you need to get the money out of that cottage property and to be able to put it into something better. Maybe you need to be able to pay off part of your principal on your principal residence so that you can weather this storm. Maybe you got to sell your rental property, because not only are you negative cash flow on that, but your payments at home have now gone up $2,000. So now you're like, okay, I'm losing $1,000 because I bought that rental in 2021 with a line of credit on my house that I'm now paying an extra $2,000 a month to maintain. So before, the rental income there, and I had to contribute a little bit of money for my income to cover the cost of the line of credit.
And they're going to tough it out as long as they can. And when that ends up, they can't handle it anymore. You know what's going to happen? Those homes are all going to go up for sale. They're going to say, we need to downsize. Now, what happens if they owe too much on the house? Can't sell it. What are you going to do then? Guys, I don't see any way out of this. I really don't. I don't see any way out of this. If the Fed lowers the solution is, oh, we'll lower the interest rate. We'll just make this cheaper. If you lower the interest rate, the bond market takes off. Because when you lower the interest rate, the inflation will take off. And the Bank of Canada knows that. They know if they ease back on the interest, the bond rate will take off because inflation will go up. If inflation goes up 1%, that bond market is going to take right off to the moon, and you're going to see bank rates at 9%. And everybody loses then.
Canada's fixed mortgage rates continued to rocket upwards in October. as spiking bond yields put upward pressure on Canada's cost of borrowing. And the surging bond yields come amid what would have once been considered good news for Canada's interest rates, with inflation coming in lower than expected and retail sales slowing, leading many to argue that the Bank of Canada is going to be holding on interest rates at its Wednesday announcement. And while the bank may indeed hold at its Wednesday announcement, the bond market, which dictates fixed rates, bears repeating, the bond market, which dictates fixed rates, doesn't appear to care, with yields up over 30 basis points since the last time the bank held on rates. And with fixed rates continuing to surge upwards, growing stress is being put on affordability, with buyers now having to qualify at 8+%. This is putting major downward pressure on prices.
So if the Bank of Canada keeps the gas pedal on and continues to drive down inflation and makes it seem to the bond market that they're doing everything they can to get it under control, it won't spike and take off. So you're going to have about 20 to 30% of people are going to be in this situation. That's right, buddy. You're an F city, population 20%, and they ain't going to be able to make it, and they're going to lose their house. If they do it the other way, everybody goes down. So how many people are you going to save?
We're definitely seeing folks struggling. We're seeing more and more signs, for sale signs go up in neighborhoods. I'm seeing a tremendous amount more than usual. And we're obviously seeing that as much as people think it's a buyer's market, buyers still can't afford to make payments. Okay, we're seeing the affordability of getting a mortgage just not there. Folks can't qualify. Okay, so there's something that's got to give.